helicopter coming up.
Is your camera recording?
It is. Hello and welcome to episode 78 of Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
And we are live at the Patchings Art Festival in Nottinghamshire.
Absolutely.
Got a nice view, hopefully, of the festival in the background there.
What a great day, Steve.
It's a lovely day. It's very hot.
Beautiful. I'm going to get a suntan here today.
Yeah, maybe we'll just sit here and not talk for half an hour, but we'll get a nice suntan.
I don't think we'd be very popular, though, do you?
Probably not. Probably not. And we've got a little bit of an audience today. Say hello, audience. It's probably not going to come out, is it, on the podcast? So we're doing a video podcast, and let's crack straight on.
Right.
With questions, shall we?
Yep. I'm ready.
First one we have here is from Jade. And Jade says, this is in response to our video podcast, the first one we did.
Oh, right.
So, hi, Jade. She says, hey, guys, just finished watching the video podcast, and wow, what a treat. So enjoyed seeing the voices. Lots of great tips as usual, and I have one question about the pastel debris that you talked about. I understand what Colin means about damaging the tooth of the paper by rubbing the eraser, but if not a regular rubber, then what does he suggest to clean up the mess? A putty eraser, perhaps? Let's start with that. Because you mentioned last time on the video podcast about when you blow and pastel dust goes all around the picture, you rub it out.
That's right.
But you said don't rub it out.
Well, I said don't rub it out, didn't I? So how do you get rid of it? Well, how you do it is you get a lot of blow. First of all, take a big, deep breath, right?
Yeah.
Make sure your mouth's dry, because this is important.
Yeah.
Right. And right in the middle of the subject, you give it a God Almighty blow. Shall I demonstrate?
No.
You demonstrate by really blowing really hard. And what happens, it disperses everything. And believe it or not, all that stuff that's on the outside will disappear. All over your curtains, all over your living room table.
In the air, in your face.
All over you.
Yeah.
But everywhere, but it won't be on the picture. I guarantee that works. Years ago, when I had my art classes and the workshops, this used to be a common problem. And you say, Colin, and I used to go along, how do I get rid of this? And I really made sure my mouth was dry. It's all right spitting on my work, but their work wouldn't work. So I got almighty blow, and they used to go, wow. And it worked every time. As I said, if you use an eraser, you're going to disturb the surface of the paper, and then that's going to the more pastel that you put on is going to stick to it.
Yeah.
And you're causing a problem. And if by any chance it doesn't work and you do end up, I think the best thing to do is put up with it, to be honest, because when you put the background on, that dust is going to disperse.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other question about the putty rubber. That was
maybe using a putty rubber instead.
The problem with the putty rubber is, even the Faber-Castell one, which is a good one, you tend to leave a residue behind.
They can be sticky, can't they?
Yeah. And some of the putty rubbers, I don't know whether the audience has ever had any of these, but they're literally like putty, and they leave a residue on it, and once it's on there, you can't get it off. It's like an oily residue. So I would strongly advise Jay to think twice about using it.
So avoid the putty eraser.
I don't think there's any need to. I mean, I've been doing this for a long, long time, as you know, and I've never had a problem with that because I do what I told you. I don't rub it out.
Just blow.
I have. When I first started out, I used to rub out.
Okay.
And it doesn't work. And you're going to spoil the picture. You're going to spoil the background, which is awful.
Yeah.
So sorry, Jade, but...
okay, that's good. No, it's good. It's a good question. Thanks for picking that up. Just to finish off your email, Jade, she says, I've always thought of it as a much less abrasive erasing method. That's using the putty rubber.
Yeah.
And
that's true. It would be, but I still think, as I said, that would...
Yeah.
I'd advise against it. You've only got to say something like that, you see, you use your putty rubber, and someone's gone one of these horrible ones out the Poundland, or Pound Shop, which is horrible, sticky horrible governments, and they'll use one of them. And then I will get it in the neck. I'll have emails and suing me for drawing the picture in a commission. No. So keep well away from them.
Great.
They're okay. I mean, I use a putty rubber for dabbing out unwanted pastel, and I use it to very good effect, and people have seen that. That's what they're there for, really. They're not really used as erasers. I mean, when you think of, say, putty rubber, it sounds as though you're rubbing
it's an eraser, yeah.
But it's relieving pastel and taking pastel off, unwanted pastel. That's what I use it for, anyway.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Jade. That's a really good
thanks for the question. That's a great question.
Okay. Well, should we head into our studio audience?
That'll be good. Now, I've had a request not to film them, though. They don't want to be filmed.
We can't turn the camera around,
but you'll have
viewers.
their lovely voices,
okay.
which will be nice.
Shall I go to the audience?
I think you better go off.
Who wants to first?
I'll entertain them, Steve, while you're gone.
Well, don't be too long, because I'm just about to speak in a minute. Okay, let's go over to one of our studio audience members. You can still hear me, but you probably can't see me.
Steve's on his way over, and
here we are. We have the first question.
There we are.
First question from Jean. Do you remember what you?
Yes. Hi, Colin. I'm working on a black dog, and I'm working from a photograph. And within the photograph, a lot of the shading is in blue.
Right.
How do I change that? Because if I give this dog to the person that I'm doing it for, I say, this is not my dog.
You don't want a blue dog.
You just want blue shading around his eyes.
No, I know what you mean.
And that. So how do I overcome that?
I tell you,
it's
a great question, and the problem you have there is in the photography or the printer. Now, when you have a photograph taken, you usually got a bias to it, and that bias can sometimes be blue, it can sometimes be orange or brownish. Now, the problem you've got is your dog isn't that colour, so what you try to do is to change it. My advice is not to change it too drastically, because all the other colours that you're copying through will also change. It's best to keep on the bias that you have. However, what I would do in a situation like that is I would temper that blue. I wouldn't put it on as you see it in the photograph. Certainly, if you're using black, you're going to be using grey. Definitely going to be using grey. And I would suggest what you do there is you use the warm greys rather than the bluey greys there. That will give you a little bit of a swing back when it comes to putting the blue on, as I'm going to tell you to do later on. Conversely to that, if it had an orange, sometimes they have a browny orange tint to the black. If that was the case, you could even get away with using the bluey greys there, which again tilt it back, pulls the bias back. Anyway, let's go back onto the grey. You build it up, you start with your if it's the dark part of the animal, which it probably is if it's got the blue there, you're starting with your grey, and that's going to be the 273, which I suggest is the
warm
first
grey.
Colour. That's the warm grey, yeah. That's the one that goes on first, because you don't want too many undercolours, otherwise you're never going to get the black on. After that, I would probably go to a 181. Now, 181 directly on top of 273. 181 is a bluey grey. You see what I mean? So we're kind of tilting the balance. We've got a warm grey, now we've got a bluey grey going on, and you'll get a nice neutral colour there. Once that's on, that is the time when you would put the blue in. Don't put it on top of the black. It goes on top of, it sandwiches between the 181 and the black. And I wouldn't put too much on. You could try this on spare paper. I always recommend it, don't I? I always recommend try it on spare paper first, just to see how it works. And if it works okay, then apply it to your animal. Apply it to, the part that is showing up as blue. That way you're following the photograph, you're following the bias, you're following with all of the other colours you're going to be putting in. So having done that, you can then put the black on top of it. You'll be using your blenders anyway, and you'll find that blue will basically disappear, but it'll still be there as an undertone. So you're kind of following the rules, but I certainly wouldn't put the blue on top. If you put the blue back on top of it, that's going to where you'll have a problem. Does that answer your question? I mean, it's what I would do in a situation like that.
That's really interesting.
Oh, I'm glad of that, Steve.
Because
I'm glad
what
I come now.
we've spoke, me not being an artist and only learning from what we've done.
Yeah.
What you've said before in the past is that pictures usually have a tone of warm or cool.
That's right.
And then would depend on the undertones that you put. So you
Absolutely.
put warm greys or ivories or ochres, or you'd put the cool greys, the colder greys on as a base to make it more bluey, warm or cold. But with a black, especially this kind of picture, you're playing with those tones.
You are indeed. Well, what I'm saying, you see, is the problem you have if you've got a lot of blue on the reference picture you've got. You don't want that blue to show through. Otherwise, you've got a blue dog, and you don't want a blue dog.
Yeah.
You kind of accept it. If it's a photograph, it was a photograph of your dog, it was a lovely photograph, and it had a blue haze to it, you kind of accept that. But in artwork, you don't have to do that. You don't have to accept that. So what we're doing is saying, get rid of the blue. However, I still think you've got to use blue in the way I've told you, but then use the warmer greys to there isn't a great deal of difference. If you look at warm grey 273 and cool grey 233 on paper, it's hard to tell them apart.
Really, yeah.
The warm grey has naturally got a sort of more earthy bias, and the warm grey 233 has got a slightly more bluey bias, slightly, but not a lot. So what I'm saying is that you switch that back. You make it kind of. It's like
a dial, and you've got warm and cool,
yeah,
and you're kind of keeping it to the neutral side rather than one more, one on the other.
Blue, and you're sticking blue, and you're using 181, which is a bluey grey. Payne's grey is bluey grey. You're using a bluey undertone bluey grey, and then you're using blue on it. You're really pushing the boat out there. I suggest that the 273 would work. I mean, not in every case.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this across the board. I'm saying that this particular one, I would try it. Try it and see. Try it and see. See how it goes.
That's interesting.
And get back to me if you do, and say, Colin, this works.
Or,
and then I'll tell everybody.
Or
if
Colin,
it doesn't work, I won't tell anybody.
Yeah, you can ask another question.
You have to go over there. Hang on, dear.
Obviously, with the black dogs, I'm experimenting. What base colours do you recommend to start with? A grey, a warm grey, as his base colour, bring him up to black?
Right. Come back. I'll tell you.
A lot running around today.
This is one of the most difficult colours you can do, apart from red, as you know, if you've done the poppy. If you're using black, you've got to use grey. You have to. You haven't got any choice. Any other undercolours would just wouldn't work. You have to neutralise to start with. And I would use, this is how I would do it, on a shine. Sometimes you get a shine on an animal, or which is very light. It actually looks white or very, very light. I put white there. That's where I put it, just on that bit. On the next area down, which is like a lighter colour, but not white, or not white like a shine, and deep black, I would use the lighter grey. When you get down to the black, you then use the 273, if you're using or the 233, depends which way you want to go with this. But I would say 273 is the safer one to always put on underneath. So that colour goes on, and then I would use 181 if you've got a blue bias, okay, to your picture, or a 175 if you've got a warm bias. Because if you've got a 175, because you could say, well, if you've got I've seen colours and I've used colours where we've used a lot of brown, especially I did a collie a while ago. You've got black and white collie, and the collie had ochre colour in it too. Now, if it's got ochre colour, you've got a clash with blue. You don't want to put blues anywhere near it. So in a case like that, I would use white for the white, obviously. And then I could use the 273 and the 270 even to tone down the white so you don't make it all white. The same colours then can be used as undertones for the black. So where the white is, you put the white. Sorry, where the shine is, you put the white, and then kind of like sometimes you get between the shine and the sort of mid-tone dark black, if you know what I mean. You'll know what I mean if you saw an animal. You get the kind of, I suppose if you looked at 4 different tones within that black. First of all, it's white. Secondly, it will be the lighter grey. And on top of that lighter grey, you would then put the 273 darker grey. Then you would put the probably 175 or a little bit of black. But you'd have to be careful there because you're putting it on top of light colours. But remember, when you put the light colours on, when you put the dark colours on top, it's going to weaken those dark colours. That's the idea of it. That's what we're looking for here. But when you've got the third tone, which is kind of neither really black or, you know, sometimes you get a really deep, dark colour. So this is the one in between there. You would then put the mid-grey on, which is 273. Then you would put 275 if it's the a warm bias or a brownie bias, or 181 if it's got a blue bias. You see where I'm coming? I mean, this should be working out with you. Or you see how I'm working with it. Now, if you've got the black itself, I would use then 273, 175, and the black directly on top of it. Having said all that, with this collie, going back to her, see how complicated this can be.
I tell you, black's
when you've got a collie dog, where you've got the ochres there, you can then put a colour like 177 instead of 175, because that will give you a slightly richer black when the black goes on. It's all playing. You play around. I tell you what, most of the colours that I've told you are on either on YouTube or on a member site. So you'll be able to pick those out and pick them up.
Who would have thought black would be so complicated?
I told you, but black is a devastating colour, and I've told so many times. I've explained this on the podcast and on YouTube, and on when I'm doing the pictures I do. Black is a darkening agent.
Yeah.
That's all it can be used for. If you put it on directly, I've never used it directly onto black. You know, we did the cow recently. I don't know, you've seen the cow yet, have you, folks?
No, because I haven't put it on there yet.
Well, when you get to see the cow,
yeah,
which we talked about on the podcast, didn't we? Yesterday.
We did.
When you see that cow, there are only the 2 colours on that. Now, the reason that I put 273 to start with, and then I put the black on. And the reason being it was so small. The cow's only this big. Now, you can't fiddle about too much with them. You start putting colour after colour after colour, you're in trouble. So in situations like that, you've got to be more positive.
Okay.
But that's really... But even then, I didn't put black directly on.
Okay. Excellent. Should we jump on to another question
I think it's
now?
probably a good idea. You got your money's worth today.
You did, didn't you? Yeah. Okay, right. Next question. Christine.
A bird picture with autumn leaf colours on it, a birch leaf. How do you get the colours for the autumn colours?
Autumn colours?
Yeah.
Ah, well, that's nice and easy, because if you go back to the Walk Through the Autumn Mist, is it?
Yes, Walk in the Autumn Mist is a...
Walk in the Autumn Mist. Go back to that on the member site and look at that. That's got all the autumn colours on there. And
You've got trees, haven't you? Autumn trees in that one.
Go back onto that and check it out. It doesn't matter, it'd be the same colour. Basically the same colours. Again, I think you're looking really at ivory as your base colour and grey as your base colour. Now the grey there will be 270. So if you think of 103, which is your ivory, and the 270, which is the grey, both of those 2 colours would be very good base colours. If you've got a lighter colour like the golden colours that you get with autumn, ivory would be an ideal colour, because that will then make the yellows and the oranges that you're going to put on register better. By using the grey, that would weaken them a little bit. But when you've got the stronger colours like the dark browns and the richer ochres that you've got, grey is a good colour there. Why? Stephen asked me, he hasn't done it, but he's going to. Why do you do that, Colin? Well, the reason...
Why do you do that, Colin?
Thank you for asking that question.
All right.
No, the reason I do that is because if you use those rich colours, that's too strong. It'll come out and go, ooh, you put your sunglasses on. By putting the grey on first at 270, it pulls the colour back a little bit. So when those other colours go on, they're tempered.
I'll come with the bike.
On the picture, it's got a conker at the bottom.
A conker.
How do you get the shine onto the brown and without making it?
That's a good question.
It's a very good question.
Ooh, conkers, eh?
Have we got time for that?
Shine on a conker. Go on then. We haven't got two more questions. We've got more questions.
I know,
as
we've
well.
got a lot
Go
more,
on.
yeah. Well, I tell you what, that's easy. The conker is quite good because you've got a very rich burnt umber in that, you know. No, burnt sienna, sorry.
Burnt sienna is a great
got
colour,
it
yeah.
right. 283, burnt sienna in that. But what you've got to do with that, believe it or not, you put the grey on again. 270 grey. Exactly the same as the autumn leaves. It's the same idea. What you do is you put your white on the shine to start with, then you put the 270 around it, just as we were talking like with the black dog, and you'd put that on, and that will go all over this time, except if you've got the conker, a part of the conker is really dark, almost to the point of being black, and I imagine it could well be if it's in shadow, you wouldn't put the 270 on that part. That part, you put the 273. You're getting
Is that like a mid-grey? Is that a mid-grey?
Yeah,
So you've got the light grey and mid-grey.
You're looking at white for the shine, the lighter grey, 270 for the bit in between, all the rich ochre colours, and then where you've got the black or the very, very dark colour, you put 273 on. For the same reason I've just mentioned it. If you put the colours of the conker on, which is the burnt siennas and the oranges and so on, it's going to be too rich. Exactly the same as a leaf. So you've got to think of it in the same way as that.
Good.
And then you'd put, on top of the conker, you'd put the, I imagine, 186 or 187 would be a really good colour to put on top of that. And I'd put it directly on top of the grey. Then I'd probably put the orange, 109. Don't think you'd need 113. 109 would work. And then graduate that through to 283, which is burnt sienna. Then you would need 177 and black. Now those I think are the only colours, and and I haven't even got conker here.
That's pretty impressive. How do you remember all those numbers?
I tell you what. Well, I tell you how I know it, because there's a set of rules.
Yeah.
You know,
and you've been doing it for 30 years.
But they are rules that I have in my head. I know instinctively. People ask me, and I know you've all done before, you know, how do you work out these colours in the first? When you get those rules, it's easy, because you think, oh, I know I can't do that, I've got to do that. But the reason I know that is because I've made all those mistakes. I've done all the things I've told you shouldn't do. I've done them.
Yeah. Good.
Oh, that will work, though.
Excellent.
Who's next? Have we got time for any more?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wendy.
Mine's about framing.
Framing, yep.
Is there any reason people choose to have a professional person to mount the pictures rather than buying a frame themselves?
Yeah.
Good
there
question.
is, yeah. Very good question, actually.
Okay.
This all comes down to price, really. If you're a struggling amateur artist and someone comes along and says, I'd like you to paint my dog, and you say, oh, that'll be fine, that'll be £100 or whatever. Let us say it's £100. If you had that professionally framed, it costs you £50 plus. How much are you getting out of that? Not a lot. So I think it's a question of degrees. On the other hand, if you've just done a £500 painting for someone and you go to Wilkinson's or Poundland and get a cheap frame, first of all, you're not doing the painting any good. So that's the kind of extremes, one extreme to the other extreme. I would always say to you, if you can afford it, have it professionally framed. The other reason for that is, as a framer myself, because I started off framing pictures, my own pictures and others, you start off with the image. You work your image out first of all. That's the image I want to project inside the mount. You then go from that picture outwards. You decide on the size of the mount. And usually it's a good idea to have the two sides and the top one. Let's say, for instance, 5 centimetres, just for instance. The bottom can be heavier. It gives a bit more weight to the bottom. So therefore you'd maybe go to 6 centimetres. I'm only quoting these off the top of my head. For about an A4 picture, that would be about right size-wise. And then you'd also think, I'd like this double mounted. Now, we know that pastel can touch the glass if you're not careful. So it's always a good idea to have it double mounted. Now, you can do that, but sometimes it's difficult to find that as a ready-made frame. Not impossible, because I know Wilkinson, we saw some the other day, didn't we, in Wilkinson, that have got double mounts. And then once you've got that dimension, that is very, very rarely can that be a standard ready-made frame size. Therefore, you then have to have it properly framed and bespoke framed. But that's going to cost money. So you've always got to work it out.
Money comes into it.
I'm afraid money has to come into it. You can't. It's no point in you paying someone giving you £100 for a picture, you spending £70 or £80 making it look absolutely super duper. I think you feel a bit cheated out of that. Ooh, you know, I mean, the person's going to be absolutely delighted because I guarantee it's going to look stunning. But you've got to be careful.
Could you negotiate that beforehand? Could you say to them, that doesn't include the framing price. If you want it framed, I can arrange that for you.
That is what I actually do.
Okay.
That's what I do. I send the picture off to people.
Without
they
being
make
framed.
the decision, not me. Yes.
Okay. But you could say, if you were starting out, you could say, if you had a framer that you could do the job, you could say, this is my price to get the picture done. I can get you a quote for it to be framed, and then they can go into the shop and decide what frame they want. Or something like that, if it's all local.
That's absolutely right, Stephen. That brings up a really good point too, because people have a certain decor in there, so they know where they're going to put it.
Yeah.
Say it's going into their living room. They know, they've got red walls and a wallpaper on one side. Whatever they've got, they know what they've got. They know what colour frame will go on. Now, if you framed it for them, you could end up put a black frame on it. It might look really nice with a black, but it wouldn't go with anything else.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I actually don't do it. I give them the picture and say, there's the picture. Thank you. There's my £100 or whatever, whatever, £50 or whatever you charge.
Mm-hmm.
And I've left it to you because of that reason. And you can put that to them and say, look, because of that reason, you know what you like. You know how much you can afford to spend it. You know the value of the picture I've given you.
Great.
I think that covers a very good point,
Good
Steve.
question. Really good question.
Great question.
Okay. Well, I think we'll call it a day there with this bumper edition of video podcast.
Hot. This is one of the hottest days we've had this year so far, isn't it?
I think it's got to be. You're going to get a sunstroke.
Yeah. Do you know what we've got coming tomorrow, though?
What have you got coming tomorrow?
Well, on Saturday and Sunday, we've got typhoons and thunderstorms.
Oh, that's lovely.
All over the country.
I think we picked a good day
to
come. Yes, no thunderstorms today. Absolutely not. Okay, so if you've got a question for the podcast, you can go to our website, colinbradleyart.co.uk, and click the contact page at the top. We'll also put a link on this video, maybe over here. There'll be a link there that you can click and you can submit a question to us. And it'd be really great if you could leave us a positive review on iTunes. It only takes a minute. And subscribe as well, so you can get each new episode sent to you every week. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to Dad's YouTube channel, Colin Bradley Art. And we'll have some more video podcasts coming soon.
That's right.
Get back to work now, can't you?
Yes, I've got to go and do some more work, folks.
Do some more demonstrating.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's it for this week. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Steve Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Enjoy your week.